When I pushed open the front door, the first thing I saw was my suitcase slipping from my hand and crashing to the floor, because my daughter was lying there, motionless, her cheek pressed against the hardwood, her fingers curled like she'd been reaching for something before collapsing. "Emma!" My voice cracked. She didn't respond. I dropped to my knees, shaking her shoulders, but her body felt limp. Her breathing was shallow, too shallow. Behind me, footsteps approached. My husband stood there, watching. His expression was disturbingly calm. "I just disciplined her," he said with a shrug, like she'd simply spilled juice. "She'll be fine." My heart slammed against my ribs. Something was horribly wrong. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911 with shaking hands. Minutes later, paramedics burst through the door, and the moment one of them saw my husband, his face drained of color. He leaned close to me and whispered, "Ma'am, is that really your husband?" The paramedic's question clung to the air like smoke, thick, suffocating, impossible to ignore. I stared at him, stunned. "What do you mean? Of course he's my husband." But the paramedic didn't answer. His eyes stayed locked on my husband as if expecting him to do something sudden, dangerous. My husband stepped forward, annoyed. "Are you done staring? She just fainted. Can you hurry up?" His tone wasn't frantic or worried. It was irritated, like we were inconveniencing him. The paramedic's partner knelt beside Emma, checking her pulse. His jaw tightened. "Her oxygen level is low. Very low." "How?" I whispered. "She was fine when I left." "She's dramatic," my husband cut in. "Kids learn fast. One time out and she acts like the world is ending." The paramedic's eyes flicked to me, and the message in them chilled my bones. "Don't trust him." "Ma'am," he said quietly, "has your daughter ever collapsed before?" "No." My voice trembled. "Never." He nodded slowly, as if that confirmed something he didn't want to say out loud. Emma's breathing hitched, her small chest rising unevenly. "We need to move her now," the other paramedic said. "Load and go." They lifted her onto the stretcher, securing straps with practiced urgency. I followed closely, gripping the rail. My husband walked behind us, still too calm, too controlled. "I'll ride with you." But the first paramedic stepped between him and the ambulance. "No, sir. You'll follow separately." My husband's eyes narrowed. "Why?" "Protocol," the paramedic said smoothly. "We need space to work." "That's ridiculous. I'm her father." The paramedic didn't flinch. "Sir, step back." A tense silence stretched between them, thick enough to choke on. My husband finally stepped away, but his expression shifted. Not anger, not concern. Something else. Something unreadable. I climbed into the ambulance while the paramedics worked quickly, patting Emma's head, checking vitals, attaching sensors. As they slammed the door shut, I glanced through the small back window. My husband stood in the driveway, motionless, his face empty, drained of any emotion a father should have. He wasn't watching Emma. He was watching me. The ambulance engine roared to life. As we pulled away, the paramedic pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. "What are you doing?" I asked. He didn't look up. "Sending a warning." "A warning to who?" He swallowed hard. "To anyone who needs to know he's back." My heart stalled. "What are you talking about? Who's back?" The paramedic finally met my eyes. "Ma'am, that man in your house? I've seen him before." He lowered his voice to a whisper. "And if I'm right, your daughter isn't the only one in danger." The paramedic's words sliced through the air, cold and sharp. "You've seen him before? What does that mean?" I whispered, my grip tightening on the metal rail beside Emma. He didn't answer immediately. He kept glancing at the rear window, watching the shrinking outline of my husband as the ambulance sped down the road. "I need you to stay calm," he finally said, "and I need you to listen very carefully." "My daughter is unconscious," I snapped, voice cracking. "I can't stay calm." He leaned closer. "That man, your husband, he was involved in an incident a few years ago, a serious one." "That's impossible," I said. "You're mistaken." "I wish I was." His partner adjusted Emma's oxygen mask, shaking his head. "Her vitals still aren't stable. BP's dropping again." The first paramedic's jaw clenched. "We're almost there. Stay with her." But his eyes kept darting back to me, full of unspoken warning. "What incident?" I pressed. "Tell me." He lowered his voice, almost as if afraid the ambulance walls could hear him. "We responded to a call, same eyes, same face, same voice." His throat bobbed. "A child was hurt, badly." I felt my stomach plunge. "Are you saying my husband—" "I'm saying the man I saw that night shouldn't exist." His voice trembled. Every record of him was erased, every ID, every fingerprint, even the security footage glitched like he wasn't really there. My pulse pounded. "You're scaring me." "You should be." Before I could argue, Emma's monitor emitted a shrill warning tone. Her oxygen level plummeted. "No, no, no, Emma!" I reached for her, but the second paramedic pulled me back gently. "We need space," he barked. He began compressions, counting under his breath while the first paramedic grabbed medication, shaking the vial with urgent precision. "Stay with me, sweetheart," I whispered, tears burning my eyes. Emma's tiny body jolted as they pushed a drug through her IV. The monitor steadied, barely. The first paramedic exhaled shakily. "We have her. For now." I swallowed hard. "For now? What does that mean?" "It means whatever happened to her didn't happen long ago," he said. "Whatever he did, it was recent." A chill crawled down my spine. Through the windows, I saw headlights. Too close, too fast. The paramedic stiffened. "He's following us." "What?" He checked the mirror again. "He's gaining speed." A fear I'd never known flooded my chest. "Why?" I whispered. "Why would he follow the ambulance?" The paramedic's answer was barely audible. "Because he doesn't want her treated, and he doesn't want me talking to you." The ambulance lurched violently as the driver swerved hard to the right. I gripped the stretcher rail with both hands. "What's happening?" "He's accelerating," the first paramedic said, eyes glued to the rear window. "Your husband's car is pushing 90. Emma's monitor beeped erratically again, each sound stabbing through my chest. The second paramedic tightened her oxygen mask and stabilized the IV line. "Stay with us, sweetheart," he muttered. Outside, headlights flooded the back window, far too close. "He's tailgating an ambulance," I whispered. "Why would he do that? Why would he risk her life like this?" The first paramedic didn't answer. His jaw was locked, a deep crease carving down his cheek. "Driver, floor it, I already am." The sirens wailed louder, but the car behind us didn't slow. It stayed glued to us, swerving whenever we swerved, refusing to drop back even an inch. The paramedic turned to me suddenly. "You need to understand something. The man I remember from that night, he didn't behave like a normal human being. He didn't think like one. He didn't care who got hurt." "That makes no sense," I cried. "My husband is he?" The paramedic snapped. I froze. His eyes softened, but the fear in them didn't fade. "Ma'am, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to keep you alive." A metallic crash shattered his words. The car rammed the back of the ambulance. Emma's stretcher jumped. Her monitor spiked wildly. "No!" I lunged forward, holding her shoulders steady as the ambulance fishtailed. The second paramedic grabbed the cabinets as supplies clattered to the floor. "We need stability. She can't handle another hit." The first paramedic pressed his radio. "Dispatch, we are under pursuit by a hostile driver, requesting immediate police interception." Static crackled. Then dispatch replied, voice strained. "Hostile driver? Sir, identify." "It's the girl's father." A long silence followed, then, "Copy. Units en route." Another slam jolted the ambulance forward. My heart felt like it was ripping open. Through the back window, I saw my husband's face illuminated by the headlights, expression blank, eyes fixed straight ahead, as if nothing else existed. He didn't look furious. He didn't look panicked. He looked focused on reaching us. "Why is he doing this?" I whispered. "Why is he chasing us?" The paramedic shook his head. "I don't know, but I know this. He isn't trying to stop us. He's trying to reach her." The ambulance suddenly jerked left as the driver swerved around a truck. I caught a glimpse of the hospital lights glowing in the distance. Almost there. The relief was short-lived. My husband's car roared forward, speeding up, then shot past us on the right. The paramedic's eyes widened. No. What? He's getting ahead of us." The ambulance turned into the hospital entrance road and slammed on the brakes. My husband's car had skidded sideways across the driveway, blocking the only path to the ER doors. He stepped out calmly, as if he'd been waiting for us. The ambulance screeched to a stop so violently that I lurched forward, barely catching myself on the stretcher rail. Emma's body jolted, her monitor shrieking with warning tones. "Damn it!" the first paramedic barked. "He's cutting us off!" Through the back window, my husband stood in front of his car, illuminated by the ambulance's flashing lights. His posture was disturbingly relaxed, hands hanging loosely by his sides, head slightly tilted, as if he were curious rather than frantic. The second paramedic shouted toward the front, "Can we go around?" "There's no room," the driver yelled back. "He blocked the whole lane." Another alarm from Emma's monitor sliced through the chaos. Her oxygen level dropped again. I grabbed her hand, my vision blurring. "Please, baby, hold on. We need to move her," the second paramedic said. "If we stay here, she won't make it." Outside, my husband began walking toward us, slow, deliberate, unblinking. The first paramedic pulled a metal baton from the wall. "Stay behind me," he ordered. "Driver, call hospital security." "I'm trying. They're not answering." My husband reached the back of the ambulance. He lifted his hand and knocked twice, calmly, rhythmically, almost politely. "Open the doors," he said. His voice wasn't angry. It wasn't panicked. It was empty. "Do not open those doors," the paramedic hissed. My husband leaned closer to the small window, staring directly at me. "She needs me." My stomach twisted. "What are you talking about? She needs doctors." He shook his head slowly, like I was the one who didn't understand. "They won't help her, not the way I can." The first paramedic stepped forward, blocking the window with his shoulder. "Back away from the vehicle!" My husband didn't move. Instead, he turned his head and smiled. A small, cold smile that made my skin crawl. Then he disappeared from view. "Where did he go?" I whispered. The driver yelled from the front, "He's circling to the side." Suddenly, bam, the entire ambulance shook violently as something slammed against the side panel. Equipment fell from cabinets. The stretcher rattled. Emma's monitor screeched even louder. "He's trying to tip us!" the second paramedic shouted. Another hit, harder. The ambulance rocked. "Stop!" I screamed, pounding on the wall. "You're hurting her!" The paramedics braced themselves, shouting commands to each other as the driver tried to stabilize the vehicle. Another strike. Another. Each one more forceful. The side mirror snapped off, crashing onto the pavement. Emma's pulse plummeted. "No," the second paramedic breathed. "She can't take this." The first paramedic looked at me, fear tightening his features. "We need to get her out, now." "But he's out there." "We don't have a choice," he said. "If we stay inside, she won't survive another hit." He gripped the door handle, waiting for the next impact. It came. The moment the ambulance rocked backward, he yanked the doors open. Cold night air rushed in. And my husband stood there, right in front of us. He stood inches from the open doors, illuminated by the flashing red lights. Calm. Still. Almost waiting. The first paramedic stepped forward instinctively, baton raised. "Sir, step back." My husband didn't react. He didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. His eyes stayed fixed, Not on me, not on Emma, but on the paramedic. "You shouldn't have taken her," he said quietly. His tone was soft, but it carried an edge that made my blood turn to ice. "We're done playing," the paramedic snapped. "Security is coming. Move, now." My husband looked past him, straight at me. "She won't survive the night without me." Something inside me cracked. "Stop saying that. Look at her. She's dying because of what you did." "No," he murmured. "She's dying because she's changing, and they can't stop it." The words made no sense, but the conviction in his voice terrified me more than the ambulance rocking had. Behind me, Emma let out a weak, rasping breath. The second paramedic shouted, "We need to get her inside, now!" Hospital security finally sprinted into the driveway, flashlights cutting through the night. "Sir, hands where we can see them." My husband lifted his palm slowly, almost amused. "You're too late." Security advanced cautiously. One officer pulled me away from the open doors while the paramedics shielded Emma. My husband stepped forward once, and instantly 5 officers swarmed him, grabbing his arms, twisting them behind his back. He didn't resist. He simply stared at the ambulance, expression blank, as if the officers restraining him weren't even there. "Get her inside," one officer yelled. The paramedics moved fast, wheeling Emma down the ramp toward the sliding hospital doors. As we hurried, I heard my husband's voice behind me. "Don't let them touch her blood. Do you hear me?" His warning sliced straight through me. The paramedic beside me froze for half a second but kept pushing the stretcher. "Don't look back," he muttered. But I did, and I saw it. My husband had broken free of one officer's grip, his wrist bending unnaturally, before 2 more forced him down, pinning him to the pavement. His face never changed, not fear, not anger, just that same eerie emptiness. Security shoved me through the sliding doors and locked them behind us. The lobby lights felt blinding after the chaos outside. "Move her!" a nurse shouted, running beside us. "ICU is prepped!" As we rushed down the hall, I caught the paramedic's sleeve. "You said you'd explain. Tell me now." He didn't look at me. He kept his eyes forward, watching Emma's pale face. "The man I saw years ago?" he said quietly. He smiled the same way. He swallowed hard. And the child he hurt had the same symptoms, the same collapse, the same oxygen drop, the same bruising. My chest tightened. "So it was him?" "No," he said. "It couldn't have been him." His voice dropped to a whisper. "That man died the night I met him." My knees almost gave out. "What are you saying?" He finally looked at me. "I don't know what he is, but I know this. He's not your husband." Before I could respond, a nurse burst through double doors. "Get ready! The girl's crashing again!" The ICU doors burst open as nurses surged around Emma's stretcher, shouting vitals and instructions. Machines beeped in frantic, overlapping rhythms. Bright lights washed over her tiny body, making her look impossibly fragile. I tried to follow, but a security guard blocked me with a firm arm. "Ma'am, please wait here. I need to be with her." "We're stabilizing your daughter," a nurse said, breathless. "We'll come get you the second it's safe." Safe. The word felt meaningless. The paramedic who'd ridden with us stayed beside me, eyes darting to every corner of the corridor. "He's inside," he muttered. "Somewhere." "How?" I whispered. "Security had him." Not for long. Down the hall, an alarm blared. The hospital intercom crackled to life. "Lockdown initiated. All staff remain in designated zones." My pulse thudded painfully in my neck. "He's coming, isn't he?" The paramedic didn't answer. He grabbed my wrist. "We need to move, now." He pulled me into a supply room across the hall. The sterile smell of bleach hit me instantly, mixing with fear thick enough to choke on. He closed the door softly and pressed his ear against it. Footsteps echoed outside. Slow, measured, too familiar. Then his voice drifted down the hallway, low and steady. "Where is she?" My breath hitched. I pressed myself against the wall, trying not to make a sound. The paramedic held a finger to his lips, silently begging me to stay quiet. Footsteps stopped directly outside the door, a long pause. Then, the handle turned, but only slightly, testing, listening. My entire body trembled. "Come out," my husband said softly. "You're scared. I can help you." The paramedic shook his head violently. "Do not answer." The handle turned again, harder this time. The metal rattled, my eyes blurred. My heart hammered so loudly I thought he'd hear it. Then, footsteps approached from behind him, heavy, urgent. A nurse's voice shouted, "Sir, step away from that door." The handle released. My husband's voice shifted, no longer soft, cold, flat. "I'm going to find her anyway." His footsteps moved on, slow, deliberate. The nurse hurried past. "Security, he's heading toward ICU." The paramedic cracked the door open just enough to peek outside. "We have to stay hidden until backup corners him. If he reaches your daughter again—" I didn't let him finish. Through the small window in the supply room door, I saw a tall shadow moving along the wall, gliding like it knew every inch of the building. My husband wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. He was searching, and he was terrifyingly calm. The nurses outside were locking ICU doors, pushing carts against entrances, shouting codes I didn't recognize. Then, as the paramedic slowly stepped out, another sound broke the silence. Footsteps. Fast. Closing in. But they weren't my husband's. The paramedic turned, eyes widening. "Someone's coming! Move back!" Before I could react, a figure rounded the corner at full speed, and the supply room door swung open. The door slammed open so violently that I stumbled backward, hitting a shelf of folded linens. I braced myself, ready to see him, but it wasn't my husband. A team of 3 police officers rushed in, weapons drawn, eyes sweeping the room. The lead officer, a woman with sharp features and steady hands, raised a palm. "Ma'am, paramedic, you're safe. Stay behind us." Before I could breathe, the intercom buzzed overhead. "Code Black, unauthorized individual in ICU wing. All units respond." The officers exchanged quick, grim looks. "He's close," the lead officer muttered. They guided us out of the supply room, forming a shield around me as we moved into the corridor. Tension hung heavy, like the air itself was bracing for impact. At the far end of the hall, my husband stepped into view. He didn't run, he didn't shout, he just smiled. "Officers," he said, voice eerily calm, "I need to see my daughter." "Sir, stay where you are," an officer ordered. He didn't listen. He took a slow step forward. The officers raised their weapons. "Don't move!" He reached into his pocket. "Hands up!" they shouted. My heart seized, but my husband only pulled out his wallet, holding it between 2 fingers as if this were a routine traffic stop. One officer cautiously approached and snatched it. Flipping it open, his brows scrunched. "This isn't you." The ID photo looked similar, same build, same jawline, but the eyes were wrong. Softer, human. "That's outdated," my husband said with a shrug. The officer's voice dropped. "This man is shorter than you." My husband tilted his head, amused. People change. As the officers tried to stall him, nurses rushed Emma's bed past us toward a different ICU room. Emma's skin looked even paler now, her breathing ragged. My husband's gaze snapped toward her instantly. That smile vanished. "She's destabilizing," he whispered. His tone was different now, urgent, fraying at the edges. Like something inside him cracked. He took another step. The officers tensed. "Sir, don't. She needs me," he suddenly roared. His voice, deep, raw, almost inhuman, ripped through the hallway. Before he could move again, 2 officers lunged, pinning him against the wall. His body strained, muscles tightening unnaturally as he tried to break free. "Get him cuffed!" the lead officer barked. They struggled, but after a chaotic few seconds, they got him restrained. He stopped fighting, stopped moving, stopped speaking, but he stared at me, unblinking, burning, his eyes drilling through the chaos. At that exact moment, Emma's monitor, pushed on a rolling stand beside the nurse's, emitted a piercing alarm. The beep flatlined. Emma's body convulsed once, then went terrifyingly still. The sound of the flatline ripped through me, a single endless note that froze the world. "Emma!" I screamed, lunging toward the nurses as they rushed her stretcher toward the nearest ICU room. The officers holding my husband tightened their grip, but he didn't struggle. He just watched my daughter's body with an expression I couldn't decipher. Not fear, not sorrow, something closer to recognition. Nurses surrounded Emma, shouting over one another as they pushed her through the ICU doors. "Respiratory crash. Get airway support. Charge to 50. Move those carts out of the way." The paramedic grabbed my arm. "Stay back. They need room. I can't just stand here." "You have to," he said, voice cracking. "If they're going to save her, you can't interfere." Through the glass window, I could see Emma's limp body on the bed. Straps held her still while a nurse pumped air into her lungs. Another nurse tore open emergency meds. The crash cart beeped angrily, demanding action. Suddenly, my husband jerked forward, straining against the officers. "Let me in there!" His voice thundered down the hall, raw and desperate. "Sir, stop resisting," an officer snapped, pushing him back. "She won't make it without me," he shouted, eyes wild. "You don't understand. She's not stable because they're treating the wrong problem." My blood turned to ice. "What problem?" I shouted at him. "What are you talking about?" He only stared at me, panting, his chest rising and falling like he was fighting some invisible battle inside himself. In ICU, the doctor's voice rose sharply. "Clear!" Emma's small body jolted upward as electricity surged through her. I smashed my hand against the glass. "Come on, baby, please come back to me." My husband's voice suddenly flattened, becoming eerily calm again. "She's reacting the same way," he murmured. I turned to him slowly. "The same way as what?" He didn't blink. "As the other child." The hallway spun. "What other child?" His eyes flicked to the EMT who had ridden in the ambulance with us. The EMT stiffened, his face drained of color. "I told you," he whispered to me. "Same symptoms, same collapse, same oxygen drop." My husband smiled, a slow, chilling stretch of his lips, and the same final stage. I felt a cold shiver crawl up my spine. "Final stage?" He leaned forward, eyes burning. "The stage where she becomes what she was meant to be." The officers shoved him back, but he didn't resist. He just whispered, almost lovingly, "She's awakening." Inside the ICU room, Emma gasped violently, arching off the bed. Her eyes snapped open, but they didn't look like Emma's eyes anymore. Emma's eyes snapped open, wide, sharp, glowing with something I couldn't recognize. For one horrifying second, she didn't blink. She didn't even breathe. Then she inhaled sharply, like someone breaking through the surface of deep water. "Emma?" My voice trembled. She didn't respond. Her gaze drifted slowly around the ICU room, studying every corner, every person, every movement as if she'd never seen them before. Not curious, calculating. The doctor stepped back uneasily. Her vitals are stabilizing, but her responsiveness is delayed. The paramedic beside me stiffened. It's the same pattern. Before I could ask what he meant, a surge of commotion erupted down the hall. Officers shouted orders, running toward the interrogation rooms. "Stay here," one officer said as he rushed past. I didn't stay. I followed. As we reached the interrogation wing, lights flickered, buzzing once, twice, then cut out completely. The hallway plunged into darkness. Someone cursed. Backup generator should have kicked in. I pressed back against the wall, heart thundering. What's happening? A flashlight flicked on, slicing through the dark. The beam shook slightly in the officer's trembling hand. When the emergency lights finally flickered to life, the interrogation room door stood wide open, chair overturned, handcuffs on the floor, twisted, bent apart like soft metal. "He broke out?" I whispered. "He can't do that," an officer said, voice barely audible. "Handcuffs don't just snap." "But they did," another officer replied. A sickening wave of dread rolled through me. The lead officer turned to her team. "Search every hallway. He's not leaving this building." The paramedic pulled me back, lowering his voice. "This is exactly what happened before. Lights went out, restraints failed. When they came back on..." He hesitated. He was gone. "No," I whispered. "Not again. Not with Emma here." The officer at the door crouched over the broken cuffs. "These look melted." "Melted?" I echoed. "How is that even..." A loud crash echoed from the far hallway. Metal hitting tile. Everyone froze. Then, a slow, dragging sound. Footsteps. Not hurried, not panicked, purposeful. "He's heading toward ICU," an officer said, drawing her weapon. My chest constricted. "Emma! He wants Emma!" The officers sprinted down the hall. The paramedic and I chased after them, weaving around carts and overturned equipment left from the lockdown. As we rounded the corner toward ICU, the doors were open, both of them, swinging slightly as if someone had just passed through. The officers moved inside first, weapons raised. I stepped in behind them, pulse pounding. "Where is he?" the lead officer whispered. There was no answer, just the steady beep of a heart monitor, and somewhere inside the room, a soft, rhythmic tapping, like fingers drumming lightly against metal. The paramedic's face drained of color. "He's already in there." The tapping continued, soft, rhythmic, steady, tap, tap, tap. Every officer froze. "Fan out," the lead whispered. "Eyes open, weapons ready." They moved deeper into the ICU room, flashlights cutting across machinery and sterile curtains. The sound echoed strangely, like it was coming from everywhere, or nowhere. I stayed just behind the paramedic, blood roaring in my ears. "Where's Emma? Did they move her?" "They must have," he said. "They had to..." But he didn't sound convinced. An officer pushed aside a curtain sharply. Nothing. Another officer checked the supply cabinet. Empty. Tap, tap, tap. "Keep your voices low," the lead warned. "If he's in here, he's hiding." One officer motioned toward the far corner. "The sound's coming from over there." The paramedic and I followed, hearts pounding in sync. Suddenly the tapping stopped. Silence swallowed the room. Then a voice, calm, close, chilling, slid through the quiet. "Why are you looking for me out there when I'm right behind you?" I spun around, breath catching in my throat, but there was no one behind us. The officers swept their lights across the room, faster now, more frantic. "Clear this area," one shouted. "He's playing with us." Another officer rushed to the back wall and stopped dead. "Lieutenant," he whispered, "you need to see this." We hurried over. The wall-mounted monitoring panel, made of thick metal, had 5 fingerprints pressed into it, deep and misshapen, like someone had pushed molten hands into steel. "Melted again," the paramedic whispered, "just like the cuffs." Before anyone could react, the ICU lights flickered. Once, twice, then went out entirely, pitch black. A scream erupted from somewhere near the doorway. "Officer down! Officer down!" Flashlights snapped on wildly, beams jerking across the room. One officer lay on the floor, breathing hard, clutching his chest. He pushed me," the officer gasped. "I never saw him. He was just there." "Where is he now?" the lieutenant demanded. The officer pointed a shaking finger toward the hallway. "He went for the ICU exit." My heart seized. "Emma!" I bolted toward the hallway before anyone could stop me. The lieutenant ran after me. "Ma'am, wait!" But it was too late. As I reached the ICU door, a shape flashed past the corner, fast, controlled, silent. My husband. He didn't look back. He didn't hesitate. He moved with terrifying purpose. "He's heading to the wing where they relocated her," the paramedic shouted. Adrenaline surged through me so violently my legs shook. I ran. The hallway stretched ahead like a tunnel, lights flickering above. The intercom crackled to life. Unauthorized individual approaching pediatric ICU. All units respond immediately. My blood went cold. Emma was there, and he was already almost at her door. I sprinted down the hallway so fast my vision blurred, the soles of my shoes slamming against the tiles. Behind me, officers shouted commands, radios crackling, footsteps thundering, but all I could hear was my own pulse pounding in my ears. Emma. He was going to Emma. The pediatric ICU doors came into view, tall glass and halfway open. Halfway open. My stomach twisted. He had already been here. "Ma'am, wait!" the lieutenant called behind me. I didn't wait. I shoved the doors open and stumbled into the dim, softly lit ward. Most of the rooms were empty at this hour, curtains drawn, machines humming steadily. But it was too quiet, too still. I moved toward Emma's room, breath shaking, every nerve screaming. Her door was open, wide open. "Emma?" My voice cracked as I stepped inside. I froze. Emma lay in her bed, tiny and fragile under white sheets, but safe. Her breathing was steady again, her face relaxed, eyelashes fluttering gently. She wasn't alone. A shadow shifted behind the curtain. My heart stopped. Then he stepped out. My husband. Hands lifted slowly, deliberately, palms showing. A gesture of surrender, except nothing about him felt surrendered. "You shouldn't be near her," I whispered. "You shouldn't be anywhere near her." He took one step closer. "She needs me. She needs doctors." "No," he said softly. "They can only treat symptoms. They can't stop what's happening inside her." My knees weakened, but I refused to back away. "You hurt her." "I saved her," he corrected. "I stopped it last time. I can stop it again." His eyes flicked to the monitor beside her, watchful, precise, almost clinical. He wasn't looking at Emma like a father. He was looking at her like a puzzle. I moved between him and the bed. "You're not touching her." His jaw tightened. "If she crosses the threshold, she won't come back." "What threshold? What are you talking about?" He stepped closer. Too close. "I've seen what she becomes when she loses control." A chill crawled down my spine. "Then why would you hurt her? Why would you discipline her?" He shook his head slowly. "Because pain brings her back. It grounds her. It anchors what's inside." Every part of me revolted. "Get away from her." He took another step. I screamed, "Security!" He lunged. Out of nowhere, the lieutenant tackled him, slamming him into the far wall. Officers swarmed the room, wrestling him down with brutal efficiency. My husband roared, an animalistic sound that didn't belong in a human throat. As they dragged him out of the room, he fixed his eyes on Emma. "She's already slipping," he hissed. "You'll see. When it starts again, you'll beg for me." The door slammed shut behind him. The room fell silent. Too silent. Then Emma's monitor beeped once. Long, low, unfamiliar. And her fingers twitched. Emma's fingers twitched again. Sharp, sudden, almost electric. I stepped forward instinctively. "Emma? Sweetheart?" The monitor beside her gave another strange, low beep. Not a flat line, not an alarm. Something different, something wrong. The paramedic who'd followed us in leaned toward the screen, his face drained. No, this isn't possible." "What's happening?" I whispered. He didn't answer. Instead, he checked her pulse, his hand trembling. Behind us, officers dragged my husband farther down the hall. His voice echoed faintly through the building. "She's entering the second stage." I pressed my hands over my ears. "Stop listening to him. Just tell me what's happening to my daughter." The paramedic swallowed hard. "Her vitals are rising too fast. Heart rate, oxygen, brain activity. These numbers aren't normal." Emma's eyelids fluttered. Once, twice. Then her hand lifted slightly off the bed, fingers curling and uncurling as though testing invisible air. A nurse stepped into the room, freezing when she saw the monitor. What on earth? The lights flickered overhead, once, twice, then steadied. The paramedic whispered, "It's the same pattern, the same surge, right before what?" I snapped. Before he could answer, a sudden crash erupted from the hallway. Metal clanged against tile. Officers yelled. My heart seized. The lieutenant burst into the doorway. "He broke free again." "How?" the nurse cried. But the answer crashed into the room before anyone could speak. My husband slammed into the doorframe, 3 officers clinging to him, trying desperately to restrain him. His face was twisted with a feral intensity, muscles straining unnaturally against their hold. He wasn't coming for me. He was staring at Emma. "Let me to her," he bellowed. The nurse screamed. The officers wrestled him to the ground, tasers sparking, boots scraping across the floor. The lieutenant shouted for more restraints. Chaos erupted like a storm inside the small room. I backed toward the wall, shielding Emma with my body. "You don't understand," he roared, voice cracking and splitting into something primal. "If she crosses over, you'll never get her back." His words hit me like a punch. The paramedic stepped between us and the struggle. "Get her out of here, now!" But before anyone could move, Emma's monitor erupted into a shrill alarm. The doctor rushed in, shouting, "She's crashing! Again!" Officers finally dragged my husband farther back into the hall, slamming him against the opposite wall. His voice broke into a desperate scream. "Stop them! They're killing her!" Doctors swarmed Emma. Her body jerked violently, then went terrifyingly still. I threw myself to her side. "Emma! Emma, please!" The doctor leaned over her. "She's destabilizing. We're losing her." Emma's chest rose, once sharply, and her eyes snapped open again, this time glowing faintly, not human, not hers, something else, something awakening. Emma's eyes glowed brighter, an eerie pale shimmer that pulsed with her heartbeat. The doctor stumbled back. What is that? What's happening to her?" I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. The glow wasn't a reflection. It wasn't the light. It was coming from inside her. Emma's body arched off the bed, bones straining, jaw clenched tight. The heart monitor spiked so violently the numbers blurred. Nurses scrambled, shouting vitals, adjusting machines that no longer made sense. "She's going hypertensive. This isn't normal. Nothing is responding," a nurse cried. The paramedic pushed past them, checking her airway. "This isn't medical. She's surging, just like before." The lieutenant burst in, still breathless from restraining my husband. He's sedated and locked in isolation. He won't be getting out again. Her eyes followed mine toward Emma, and her face drained. "What is she doing?" Emma's fingers curled, and the lights overhead flickered again, not randomly, in a rhythmic pattern. On, off, like her pulse was controlling them. The paramedic grabbed my arm. "Listen to me. We need to stabilize her before the surge hits full cycle. If it does..." A blast of static exploded from the intercom, cutting him off. Every speaker in the ICU screeched, then fell silent. Then, a single low tone hummed through the room, not mechanical, not electrical, almost vocal. Emma's glow intensified, stretching like faint veins of light beneath her skin. The doctor tried to hold her down, but his hands trembled. I don't think she can hear us," he whispered. Tears blurred my vision. "Emma, baby, stay with me. Stay with me, please." Her head jerked toward me, slowly, mechanically, like a puppet turning on an invisible string. For a moment, just a moment, I saw her, my Emma. "Mom," she whispered, voice thin, trembling. "It hurts." The glow flickered violently, then surged. Machines sparked. The crash cart lights died. 2 monitors shut off completely. A nurse screamed as equipment shorted out. "She's overloading the room!" someone shouted. "No," the paramedic muttered. "The room is overloading because of her." The lieutenant barked orders. "Kill power to this wing, now!" The lights cut out, every machine going dead. The glow remained. Emma sat up slowly, hair rising with static that shouldn't exist in a powerless room. Her eyes locked onto me again, glowing bright, almost white. "Don't be afraid, Mom." My knees buckled. "Emma, I remember," she whispered. "What do you remember?" Her head tilted, unnervingly calm. "The other child." My blood froze. Before I could speak, alarms blared from the hallway, backup generators kicking on, warping the lights, and over the chaos a radio crackled. "The man in isolation is awake. He's standing, he's smiling." The lieutenant swore. "He shouldn't be awake yet." I backed toward Emma's bed, eyes locked on her glowing stare. "What's happening to you?" I whispered. Emma blinked once, calm, certain. "He's coming, because he knows I'm almost ready." The hallway outside thundered with footsteps, officers sprinting, radios blaring, nurses shouting for backup. But inside Emma's room, everything felt unbearably still. Emma sat upright, glowing eyes fixed on me, not wildly, not violently, but with a strange calm that terrified me more than anything she'd done tonight. "He's coming," she whispered, "because he knows I'm almost ready." "Ready for what?" I choked out. She didn't answer. The lieutenant burst into the doorway, breathless. "We need to move her, now. Your husband broke through the second layer of restraints. He's headed this way." The paramedic grabbed the bed rails. "We can't move her, not during the surge." "We don't have a choice," the lieutenant snapped. But Emma lifted her hand, slowly, almost peacefully, and every machine in the room hummed to life, despite the power being cut minutes ago. The lights flickered overhead, then steadied. Her glow dimmed slightly, as if she were pulling energy inward. "Mom," she said softly, "don't let them hurt him." "Hurt him?" My voice cracked. "He tried to kill you." Emma shook her head. "No, he tried to stop me." Before I could process the words, a metallic crash echoed from the hall, louder than anything earlier, then a scream, then silence. The lieutenant drew her weapon. "Stay behind me!" Footsteps approached, slow, measured, familiar. My husband stepped into the doorway, awake, alert, and completely calm, officers following behind him, weapons lowered in confusion. He wasn't restrained. He wasn't injured. He wasn't even breathing hard. His eyes went straight to Emma. "It's time," he murmured. The lieutenant raised her gun again. "One more step and I will shoot." My husband held up a hand. "You won't need to." He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time since this nightmare began. "Let me speak to her." I wanted to scream no. I wanted to throw myself in front of Emma, but something in his expression, something human, something terrified, made me hesitate. Emma watched him quietly. The glow in her eyes softened. He stepped forward slowly. "Emma, stay here. Don't follow it. Don't give in." Emma blinked. "I'm tired." "I know." His voice broke. "But you're stronger than it. You always were." Her glow flickered. Machines around her powered down again, one by one. Emma exhaled, long and shaky, and slumped back into the pillows. Her eyes closed gently, the glow gone. The doctor rushed to her, checking her pulse. "She's normalizing. Whatever was happening, it's stopping." My husband stepped back, relief washing over his face. He nodded toward the officers. "I'm ready." "Ready for what?" I whispered. "To go," he said softly. "They'll need to keep me somewhere safe. I won't fight it." Officers surrounded him, cautious but no longer panicked. As they led him away, he looked back at me one last time. "She'll be okay now." Hours later, when everything calmed and Emma finally woke, truly herself, her voice was small. "Mom?" I held her, sobbing with relief. She whispered again, even softer. "Mom, he wasn't the one who hurt me." The room went cold, and Emma's trembling hand pointed, not toward the door where he'd been taken, but toward the window behind me.